Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome. Yay. So here we are, evening gathering, satsang for spiritual inquiry and community. And sitting in recognition of life's mysterious origin, contemplating source. So let's sit for maybe 10 minutes. Let's just sit together and I'm not sure where you are in your car there, Lauren, but So sometimes at the beginning of a contemplative sitting session or meditation, whatever word you use for sitting down and being quiet and looking within, it can feel kind of amped up a little bit, especially we're coming together. There's people coming in with Zoom, people here in the room. We're all coming from our version of whatever day we've had. So we can just come very precisely with our attention. We can notice where the attention is to begin with, where it's, even if it's even in present time, it could be, in an abstract way, thinking about what was happening earlier or what might happen later, but just bringing it more into present moment, present time. And using the body is a great way of doing that because it is present time. It's right where it is. So just sensing that through, some people find it through the breath, the heartbeat, the sense of aliveness, just right here and right now that's within and as the body. And thoughts come and go, and sensations come and go, and feelings of, who knows, anywhere from vigilant anxiety to falling asleep. I mean, who knows? So we're just right here with the attention, present to all of that. Slowing down. Coming into our seat. Letting the attention fall into that silent, aware presence, whatever you may call it, the seeingness. Relaxing and resting while abiding as very vitality as well. There's an alert, vital quality to the aliveness So, again, thank you so much for being here and welcome. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. See if I can wind my way into what I had hoped to speak about tonight. Many of you have, we've all been sitting together for quite a few years at this point, and then there's some of us who are just coming. Some are joining, anyway, we're all on a different journey. But as you guys know, I mostly only ever have one thing to say, and that is that when we come to satsang and we come to be together in this way, it's to rest out of, give way the armor of knowingness and roles and compensations and identities and beliefs, and especially the belief that there is such a thing as separation and division and finite, that we are a separated, finite individual divided away from the rest of creation and each other. We come together in this way to relax out of that. Relax out of it. Just let go of that belief for 40 minutes even. And I really haven't had much else to say other than love is all and all is love, and it's self-evident. It's not an experience like love between two people or love for your pet or love in relationship to something else. It's a self-evident, palpable, obvious, undeniable truth. Love is. It is. It's the isness. And when we give way, just surrender even for a little bit of time in a meditation session or in a sincere way in a gathering or just in your own quiet place in your room, acknowledging that the idea of a separate identity and a belief in that is not fundamental. It's something we assume and put on so that we can have this human experience, but it has no reality. It has no reality. And when we do that, what begins to happen is the truth, not relative truth, but undeniable, self-evident begins to permeate the actual direct experience of the life. It permeates it. It shifts the orientation. Sometimes this happens in radical lightning bolt sort of way, as it did in this case, but it can be, in all, thankfully, beautifully, amazingly, wondrously, it happens in infinite amount of ways. But it does, the shift of identity, the shift of actual how we are oriented to and as direct experience, it shifts. And love that is not with cause joy that is not in relationship to the happenings, peace, become a reality, a consciously experienced reality. Really, anytime we fully make way, surrender, whatever word you want to use, give way as what is really happening, as isness. Joy is inherent to that experience. It's inherent to that experience. It's fundamental to a complete surrender. But I can talk about different facets of the awakening, unfolding, the journey, the path of this sort of the direct way. And what can happen is the mind can then become fixated on a spiritual truth in a very mental way, a very, very mental way. So we can start thinking that somebody was saying earlier out here, we have to denounce, we have to get rid of something because it shouldn't exist, because in truth it doesn't. Do you hear how sneaky that is? Do you hear what I'm saying? The mental fixation, the mental idea of what the reality actually is, can then start running us around just exactly as all ego processes do. So it's kind of tricky. Some teachers don't bring out lots of facets until, they work one-on-one with students and they bring out what is perceived as appropriate to that particular journey in that particular phase. And, in this lineage and also with Dr. Hawkins, it was just kind of all, here it is. Here it is. But the mind, if that isn't the actual direct experience yet, the mind can really make a failing out of it. Do you hear what I'm trying to say? I should be doing this. I should be doing this. Well, this should be happening because that's the spiritual thing. And I've had this glimpse, or I know my ground. And so, and we end up going to war with the actuality, which is, well, it runs us around. It runs us around. When we go to war with what actually is, then we prolong the process and the experience of suffering. That's just inherent to that. We can start thinking we have to blow out, like, okay, say I give the teaching of, you've all heard me say, you put a bigger battery in the flashlight, you're going to see farther into the dark corners, more shadow stuff, or, whatever. So we hear that teaching. And then if it becomes a mental fixation, it turns into a have to. I have to, see, do this, I have to see these conditionings and these habituated thoughts and and these beliefs, and I have to bust them. And it kind of becomes, it adds to the psychological self. It doesn't transcend the psychological self. It adds to it. It adds to it. It gives it more fodder. I'm not sure I'm coming across with this, so I'm gonna read something I wrote. Mental fixations. Spiritual fixations taking the place of previous, more consolidated, coalesced, deeply conditioned stuff, like before we started sitting, before we maybe had some openings and some glimpses, we were very, solidly identified as a me and a separate self and all of that. And while that has relaxed and given way some, there are now these spiritual ideas that come in and take the place of those really conditioned stuff. Lots of times it'll be philosophical, but a mental fixation is still a mental fixation. And at any given time, I'm talking about different facets of the awakening journey. But the essence of the teaching is to look within and recognize the abiding presence that is the ground of all being, and be sincere about what one is actually experiencing. Because when we do that, and the only way is through, and we are sincere, this is happening. I should be in uncaused joy, but I am experiencing total fury at the moment. That recognition is the solvent. It's the way through. It's the truth. And so it sets us free. That is actually a reality. That's an actual reality. And there's this thing, right? The new spiritual thing, fixation, that says, oh, that's just not a spiritual way to be. And we've replaced one set of me-ness with another sometimes. The spiritual me and the mental fixations around what that looks like and what we should be doing and what it means to have a direct experience of the ground of being and what it means to, wake up and all the stuff. That's why periodically you'll hear me want to use a whole bunch of different words we've never used before to describe it. So that as a group, we aren't just clinging to a set of vocabulary that no longer really has even any meaning. Because that's what the mind, the mind is a tool of division. It works wonders for all kinds of things. But when it comes to belief and identification, it's tricky. The teaching is to recognize the undeniable, self-evident truth at the center of all being. Self-evident is. And in this recognition, in an inherent natural shift in identification it's happening. It's unfolding. So it's so crucial, really, no matter what we've realized, remembered, or recognized. It's so crucial, the sincerity of what the actuality, the actual direct experience is. And we don't have to announce it or, it's not like that, but just for our own self, sincere with our own self, because as we've spoken about it, there is a core belief structure in the center of what we call ego, which is that process, right? Ego is not like a evil entity that's lurking somewhere and we're going to find it. It's direct perception coming in, going through the cognitive filters and conditionings and habituations, and then a belief colors the direct perception. That's the mind world. The belief colors it, and then we have a feeling about the belief. The belief generates a feeling, right? As an emotion. An emotion. Because belief and emotion are same. And then that emotion inspires generally some other kind of reaction that's either another belief or a defense, a compensation, a justification, a rationalization. So that's the process of ego. It's not like an evil, it's just what happens in conditioned humanness. And that can take on a very, very spiritual flavor. It can take on a real spiritual flavor. And the core of it is a not enoughness, right? A self-consciousness that says, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, that's born out of separation. The belief in this process as a fundamental identity. If we believe that that process is our fundamental identity, we're going to feel really, really, really scared in our nervous system and inside of our psyche, because we're all alone trying to keep the house of cards and the world, and there's no control, and we're just so that process, when it believes itself to be fundamental, essential identity, feels vulnerable, frightened. And we have this in our nervous systems. Right? All the different, we were talking about brains earlier, all the different I'm searching for a different word besides evolution. But let's go with that for right now. The reptilian brain, the instinctual brain, all of that, and the frontal cortex, and then all the stuff that hasn't ever even been turned on yet. But is turning on. So in our nervous systems is this core belief of, I can't relax or I won't be safe. I can't relax or I won't be safe. I can't relax or I won't be safe. And it's fed by this belief in separation from life itself. Life, that from which the I thought comes, is so immeasurably wise, intelligent, cosmic, creative. All of our words fall so short. We're talking about that which animates, that which births existence in each and every moment. And somehow or another, we have built up a wall, an illusory veil that says we can't trust that. We have to trust our processes, the ego, the ideas, which are relatively true in each and every circumstance, right? They're relatively true. They get us across the street. They get us to class. They get our, it's a beautiful thing. I'm not dissing it. It's when it's in service to source, when it's moving and arising and becoming as source in every moment. That's a really different, very, very, very different experience than believing that this me is an actuality and I can pray to source, or I can maybe connect sometimes, but I got to keep everything, nailed down, even if it's through this spiritual ideation, whatever it is. And I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And if I'm not, then I'm either spiritually failing or somehow not good enough, all the stuff. We've all been there. That way is quickly dying. Don't you agree? That way is not really going to be away much longer. And so the whole, everything's changing, including the physiology that is part of existence. It's not mine. It's not yours. It's not, our physiology is God's eyes, ears, hands, feet. Is shifting, it's changing, it does feel disorienting. But the context is such a refuge. It's such a refuge. So it's almost like first things first. As our dear Sharon says, first things first, do you know the ground of your being? Contemplate the source of reality. And we have to be sincere when belief is running us around in whatever way, even if it looks very, very spiritual. Clear down to the roots of it, the roots of, I have to struggle to survive. I have to work. I have to effort to be loved. These are deep, deep rooted identities in the collective and in our nervous systems that will come forward, come into consciousness in order to be loved and return to love. I see you. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to let go. It feels really disorienting to and a mental processing, referencing, narrating, categorizing, whatever we want to call that, to move beyond judgment into a discernment. Things are as they are. And then the responsiveness, the ability to respond from a wholeheartedness, a wholeness is there because there's no denial of the truth. When we're in denial of what actually is, and we're just judging it to make the nervous system feel safe, so it's innocent. It's an innocent process. Grab onto a belief that then, okay, yeah, that feels right. But it's still placing a this in opposition to that. It's a positionality, a tightly held position, rather than a yes, open yes to what actually is. Not that what is going to necessarily be what we want. We might feel like we need to respond in a way that moves us out of a situation, changes something. I mean, it's not, just, oh yeah, anything, all experience feels exactly the same. Maybe I'm not being very clear. It's a yes to what is actual. And in that wholehearted, there is a responsive freshness that's beyond the thinking mind, that arises without thinkingness, without referencingness, without positionality. But it starts with our deepest sincerity about what's actually happening in our direct experience. Because once we have come to realize, remember who we are, fundamentally, essentially who we are, that it's an empty fullness of divine love. That has everything at its disposal. It's not against. It can't get up against anything. There are no edges. It can't get up against anything. It's a wholeness. So the movement then is understanding, even if it's difficult. It's not necessarily easy, but it's not sufferable. It's not suffering. It just is a difficult, maybe, response, because maybe the response is, I have to leave this situation, or this person, or this job, or this way of being. But you know it because you cannot animate it anymore, because you're not animating from personality anymore and from positionality anymore. That which animates is the response. It's rising as a wholeness, see? It doesn't see it as an other or anything even that it's actually responding to. It just feels like a wholeness coming into being that has all these facets. And then there's the next moment. They rise, it all comes into being as one totality. It's that beautiful reading. I wish I had it right now, of Thich Nhat Hanh. Please call me by my true names. And it is that realization, that recognition that I am the pirate. I am the woman that the pirate has raped. I am the ocean. I am the boat. I am the, anyway, I'm not doing it justice, but I wish I had it here. Please call me by my true names. Hi.
Hello, sorry.
It's okay. Welcome. You know, all of this is just a big, I guess, long-winded way to basically say, I've been reminded a few times recently that we can speak about spiritual unfolding and the shift in identification. It's a shift. It's an actual shift in identification that is called spiritual awakening. We can speak about it in many different ways. And I have, but it's always, always, always the finger pointing to the moon. It's never the truth of it. It is the menu, right? And not the meal. We can't speak about the unnameable, unknowable, unspeakable, but undeniable truth. We can only ever be it. We can only ever be it. So the mind hears these words. The mind hears these words. And it has to be combined with a deep inner sincere listening and seeing, because one is sovereign, is autonomous, and one's direct experience is really the only path, the only way. And it's very helpful. It's very helpful to have teachers and teachings and all the great wisdom keepers coming to the same place and then reporting it. But the mind can fixate and close down on the words and then create these ideas that then just become another program for the superego. You know, I'm not spiritual enough, or whatever it is, whatever it is. I still have these identities and these emotions, and see what happens is that our intellect, the mind, cannot entertain the paradox that right in the middle, amidst, amongst, and accompanying deep grief, deep rage, deep trenches of humanity, is causeless joy, causeless love, and causeless peace. That's not something the mind can entertain. That's paradoxical. That's the realm of actuality. But when we put it into an idea, it's like, no, it's one or the other, right? And so then the superego can come in and say, well, I'm feeling this, or I didn't get rid of that, or I didn't see that, or maybe I'm not as evolved and spiritual as I thought. It's endless. It's so unkind. It's so unkind. And that is how you know it. That is how you know it. That's the face that it shows, is unkindness. especially to oneself, in all of its costumes, spiritual or not. So we look for gentleness, kindness, understanding. And then that's the road, you know. Trish was saying earlier, it may be counterintuitive, but step closer to the misunderstanding within oneself. What does it have to say? You know, when we are smiling, something feels right and heartfelt. Let's take a moment and really understand how that feels in the body and in the psyche, and how it ripples, so that we aren't just moving over it before we have a chance to really like muscle memory, have the nervous system truly sink into it. I should be doing this. Wait. Before we just give all belief and all just right of way to all of these shoulds. I mean, the whole love is. So what if we just took that on faith and trust until it begins to deeply penetrate the identities, the superego, the nervous system, and we can begin to recognize it in moments where the mind is stood still, dumbfounded. I'm without words. I'm speechless. There it is. There it is. I'm gonna read something that's kind of coming to me. I hope I brought it. This is a quote from Jean Klein, one of Sharon's teachers. Maybe Morgan too. I'm not sure. Yeah. To discover your innermost being, you must start from where you are at this very moment, whatever that is. You cannot begin anywhere else. Whatever appears before you, your body, sensations, feelings, thoughts, must be accepted as they are and listened to as a whole, a wholeness, right? A wholeness. This does not mean you should analyze, interpret, understand, or look for an inner meaning. Do you hear the difference? What is important is to discover listening itself, which sooner or later will be revealed. At first, the accent is on what is listened to, the sensation, feeling, or thought. But the more the listening is sustained, the more emphasis is shifted to the listening itself. Without a listened to, then you are at the threshold of the source from which the listening derives. And that very instant listening will become a living reality. We don't have to, when I say be as is, or he says start from where you are, it's not in a way of believing whatever's happening. Do you hear the difference? Because a lot of thoughts can run through the head that are not at all true. Not at all true. Not at all true. So it's not that we're listening with this idea that, oh, because it's a direct experience, it's the truth. I have to start from where I actually am. It's a recognition, just a recognition that the content, the passing phenomena, the content is perceived as it is. This is a piece of paper. This is a feeling of anger. This is a voice in my head. The head, not even my head. This is a voice that is rambling on very unkindly. Whatever it is. And then in that sincerity of just not trying to push it away, deny it, accept it, or anything else. Just, what did he say? Just listen to as a whole. Without analyzing, interpreting, understanding, or looking for an inner meaning, then we begin to discover listeningness. Listeningness. What is that? Seeingness. What is that? What is this awareness that is present for each and every experience? And it begins to draw us, away from the content and into that which is listening. And then, as he says, the source from which the listening actually derives is love. Somehow we have to recognize when we are turning something into a conceptualization. A conceptualization. It's not a bad thing. It helps sometimes to have a conceptualization to begin with. That's what words are. They're conceptualizations. That's how we're having this meeting. But when we lend belief, fundamental belief in these conceptualizing of what actually is, it is the cycle of samsara. It's the cycle of suffering. That's what it is. Okay. I think that might be well enough. I thought I had a Mary Oliver. Oh, let's see. He's got all moved around. We read this at retreat, and I just think it's so beautiful. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. And meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, and I will tell you about mine. And meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun, the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. So let's take a little break. So just sense, if you can, bringing the attention in just a lightness of being way, just a vitally alert and present, but easy does it. If you can, sense that vertical channel, that channel that's running head to tail, head to tail, head to tail. And how it informs in the body as the spinal column. The two are not separate, see, right? This vertical, timeless, original, radiant, before nothing and before everything. And how it informs into the subtle body, into the cerebral spinal fluid and the spine itself, the brain, all the nerves coming off of the spinal column. And how when the perception flutters the system with belief and analyzing, conceptualizing, referencing, you can feel the buzz, but step back into that original radiance, dazzling dark radiance. Not in a separate way from the reflection in the physicality, which is the nervous system, in a wholeness. The timeless, formless, unnameable potential, giving rise, birthing really itself as the nervous system. And that sense of deep refuge beyond any kind of concept of home or refuge or resting. Allow that to just sort of bathe the nervous system. It's a sense of alertness, but in a not there's not a sense that one needs to be safe or protected or shut down or run or freeze. It's just a deep and profound at restness that is alive and alert and aware. You can catch the rhythm of it. It's like the in-breath and the out-breath, and the rhythm of all of the metabolism. It's the nervous system is metabolizing experience. And whatever experience, whatever it is, however grand, however mundane, however simple, however extraordinary, the less we make of it, the more we're able to actually live it. It lives itself through and as this facet of wholeness. The conceptual mind can't understand what it can't understand. It can't understand what it can't understand. So let that be. Just rest from that. Just know it can't understand that beyond conception. And sense that release, really, that relinquishing within the nervous system. I don't have to know. I cannot know. And then life lives as what has been recognized. And even that is too many words. Just sense that beautiful head to tail, rhythmic radiance, and let it just inform and bathe the spinal column, the brain, the nervous system in its radiant quality. Still, silent, dynamic, original. Thank you. Thank you. I love you.